Hey, what's up guys? Toby from the Master Box Show, and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. How does the sound of fear spreading, damage over time, crit fishing sound to you? Well, that is the theme of the build today. A monster that can spread one of the most powerful debuffs in the game, while dishing out damage over time to as many targets as possible, raining down the critical hits like an absolute maniac, literally turning your enemies into training dummies that just stands around and accepting their death. One of the most unfair builds ever made, and a total monster of a striker. I present to you the Skirmisher. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, here we are now guys in the character creation screen. This is where we will be building the foundation of our Skirmisher for today. Before we start selecting our race, just wanted to let you guys know all of the races are viable for the build. If you don't mind going the min-max or going the optimized route, for as long as you're happy with your character, the build is fine either way. The races that we'll be selecting are just for the optimizing route and will have the best benefit for the build. I'll also be using different races for this guide just to show you guys that it is totally viable. That being said, there are two races that are interesting for the build, starting with the Drow and the Dwarf. The Dwarf has a really cool race feature such as the Dark Vision as well as the Dwarven Resilience, which gives us advantages against poison and poison damage. For the sub-race, we are eyeing on the Dweger sub-race specifically due to the superior Dark Vision as well as the Dweger Resilience, which will provide us with advantages with Illusion, Charmed, and Paralyzed. It also has a really nice race feature which gives us a free invisibility spell if you want to sneak around with this character. For the other race, which is the Drow, it has a really nice race feature such as the Drow Weapon Training, which gives us proficiency against Rapier, Short Sword, and Hand Crossbow, as well as a superior Dark Vision and the Fey Ancestry, which will provide us with advantages in saving throws. For the sub-race, you can get any sub-race that you prefer. For the classes, we will be starting off as the Board, which will be our bread and butter class in the majority of our levels. As for the cantrips, we'll be taking obviously Vicious Mockery as well as maybe Minor Illusion. For the spells, I highly advise you take Dissonant Whisper that will fear our enemies for 2 turns as well as dealing 3d6 psychic damage. You can also add Tasha's Hideous Laughter if you want. For the backgrounds, there's actually 3 backgrounds that you might like depending on what role this character will fill out. If you want to make him the face of the party, you can go with the Noble. That will give us the skill with Persuasion, but if you want healthier approach, you can go Criminal. This will provide us with skills in Deception as well as Stealth. For the final one is the Charlatan. That will also give us Deception, and the difference is that if you want to pickpocket or maybe open doors or lockpick, this is the sleight of hand approach. As for the abilities, it will most likely look like this. We are prioritizing Dexterity, Charisma, as well as Constitution for our character, especially in the early game. Dexterity will be our ability modifier for our Dexterity and Finesse weapons, as well as our Initiative and AC. Charisma will be second as we are a Bard, and this will benefit our Charisma saving throws as well as our conversations outside of battle. Constitution is third for our physical endurance as well as our hit points, especially in the early games. Right after character creation, we are moving into level 2 of our Bard. Majority of our levels will be moving into the Bard class, especially in Act 1. So this will mean that you will be having a really useful Bard for the early game. For this level, we are unlocking some really nice features such as the Jack of all traits, giving us proficiencies, as well as the most important thing here is the Song of Rest that will provide us a free short rest charge. For the spells, we'll be taking Bane, or if ever you prefer, Charm Person. So for me, I just take Bane for this level. Level 3 of our Bard class, we unlock our first important subclass that we need for the build in the form of the College of Swords. This will give us some passives such as our own fighting style, but the most important thing here is our Slashing Flourish, which will give us the chance to attack up to 2 enemies in 1 turn with the cost of a Bardic Inspiration. For the fighting style, we'll be taking 2-weapon fighting, which will provide us with the passive feature when we do an attack of our offhand weapon. It will add our ability modifier to the mix. For the spells, we'll be taking one of the most important spells, particularly in the early game, which is the Hold person. Now level 4 of our Bard, we unlock our first feat of the build. We are focusing on a specific feat here and to get it as early as possible, which is the Sharpshooter. This will provide our ranged attacks to not receive penalties from high ground rules, as well as a plus 10 additional damage with just a minus 5 penalty to our attack rolls, but we will offset that later on our build. For the spells, we'll be taking blindness, or if ever you prefer, you can also take invisibility. For the additional cantrips, just take minor illusion if you haven't already. Level 5 is the first power spike of the class, which will unlock our first class feature that is important for the build, which is the Font of Inspiration. We will be regaining all of our bardic inspiration every short or long rest. For the spells, we'll be taking Plant Growth. This spell will be responsible for reducing the move speed of our enemies for 10 turns, and what's really cool about this spell, it does not have any concentration requirements. Level 6 is our long-awaited level that will be getting our extra attack, as well as a really cool action which is Counter Charm that will give us advantages in saving throws against Charmed and Frightened for 3 turns. For the spells, we'll be taking Hypnotic Pattern. Congratulations on reaching level 7 of the Bard. We will now be introducing our first multi-class in the build in the form of the Warlock. That will give us this amazing utility in the form of our subclass feature, which is the Great Old One. The subclass feature that I'm talking about is the Mortal Reminder. Whenever we crit against a creature, the creature or any nearby creatures will need to be succeeding a wisdom saving throw or become frightened until end of turn. What's amazing about Mortal Reminder, for as long as you keep on critting, it will always proc against your enemies, so you can always fear them if you have a guaranteed crit attack on your foes. Now for level 8, which is level 2 of our Warlock, we are still focusing on our Warlock tree to get a specific Eldritch invocation that we'll be needing for the build, particularly the Devil's Sight and the Agonizing Blast. Level 9 is the level that we will be introducing our final subclass in the build in the form of the most powerful class in the game, which is the Fighter. This will provide us our second fighting style in this build, which is Archery. This will provide us with +2 bonus to our ranged attacks. Level 2 of our Fighter, we unlock our Action Surge, which will provide us with an extra action per use of this ability and will replenish every short rest. Level 3 of the Fighter, still focusing on this class, we now unlock our final important subclass for the build in the form of the Champion. We will be increasing our critical chances with the power of the improved critical hit. The number we need to roll a critical hit while attacking will be reduced by 1, and the effect stacks with items and skills that we will be introducing later on. And finally, level 12, still focusing on our Fighter class to round out everything for this majestic skirmisher. We are focusing on our feat, which is the ability improvement, and dumping all of it to dexterity just to increase the damage of our ranged weapons. And if you have the hair from Anti-Ethel, I advise you to add it to this character for you to have 20 dexterity total. Alright, now it's time for us to talk about our item setup to make our skirmisher as powerful as possible. I have 2 builds for you guys today, starting with the early game setup that is for the Act 1 and Act 2. And the other one is for the Act 3. We're gonna start off with the headpiece that I can't pronounce properly, but it basically gives us the Shrouded in Shadow, which is the class action that gives us invisibility every short rest. For the armors, you can actually get any scale mail that you can find or any medium armor. In my case, I'll just go with the scale mail +1 just to increase my AC. Third is the most important item that we need for the build, which is the Inchorus Gloves. It will grant us the passive Inchorus Corrosion. When the wearer deals acid damage, they also inflict noxious fumes. As for the boots, we can get the Disintegrating Night Walkers that will provide us with the Misty Step spell. For the rings, which is the second most important item that we need in the build, which is the Caustic Band that will provide us with the passive Malefic Excretion. When we attack, we also deal +2 acid damage as it will activate the effect of our Inchorus Gloves. For the final ring is the Risky Ring that will provide us with the passive Risky Attack. We will gain advantage on our attack rolls and receive disadvantage on our saving throws. As for the weapons, we can get the Failure Aloof. That is a really nice one-handed sword that goes really well with our Bard motif. It has a really cool Failure Aloof melody that will provide us 2 skills, which is the Failure Aloof Shriek as well as the Failure Aloof Sing. Failure Aloof Shriek gives a penalty of 1d4 to the Charisma and Wisdom saving throws and also damages enemies with 1 to 4 damage in a 6 meter AoE. But I'm really particular with the Failure Aloof Sing as it will grant a buff around 6 meters of our AoE of the caster of 1d4 bonus to our attack rolls and Charisma as well as our Wisdom and Intelligence saving throw for 5 turns. Whenever you start a battle, you can just use Failure Aloof Melody, and then after that is you use Failure Aloof Sing to buff your allies with this amazing spell. And finally, for the light crossbows, we'll be using light crossbows most likely when dealing damage, such as the Hellfire Hand crossbow that has the Hell Stalker that could possibly inflict burning when hitting targets with this weapon while we are hiding or invisible. And it also has a free Scorching Ray shot. While your enemies are burning, we will be activating the passive of Firestoker, which is the Burned Alive. When the enemies are burning, we deal additional 1d4 piercing damage. Now we're going to be talking about the Act 3 build to make our Skirmisher as powerful as possible. The theme here is to take any critical modifier or increases the chance of us to crit and equip it if we can. So starting with the helmet, we're going to be taking the Saravox Horned Helmet. This will provide us with the passive Deathbringer's Sight. This will basically give us dark vision, but the most important thing that we need here is it will reduce the number of rolls that we need to land a critical hit by 1. Up next is the Shadeslayer Cloak. This will provide us with the passive Stealthy Critical. While we are hiding, the number of rolls that we need to crit is reduced by 1. Third is our Armor of Agility that will provide us with exotic material that will add our full dexterity modifier to our AC. Fourth is the Helldusk Boots that will provide us Steadfast, which will negate the effects of any difficult terrain as well as Infernal Evasion. For the amulets, we'll be focusing on the Amulet of Greater Health, which will provide us with Constitution up to 23. For the weapons, we will be taking the Marco Headgear. The most important thing that we need here is the Kreshka's Favor. This will provide us with this Invocation spell that we can select an array of elemental spells that we will be imbuing our Skirmisher. Alright guys, I'm now going to be showing you some active gameplay on how we properly utilize our Skirmisher. So after a long rest, you need to activate the power of our Drake Throat Glaive, which is the Draconic Elemental weapon. So we just equip it and drop our Hellfire Crossbow so that we can imbue it with elemental damage. So now we will be using our Drake Throat Glaive and activate our Draconic Element Fire. We will be including elemental damage fire to this crossbow. Now we have fire element to the crossbow. What's really cool about this will inflict fire damage and possibly burn them, and it will activate the effect of our Firestroker. And after that, we will be equipping Marco Headgear as well as any shield that we find and activate the ability of our Marco Headgear, which is the Kreshka's Favor. We are eyeing on the Deadlier Than Arsenic, which is the poison damage for this build. We'll be using this. Now we just have a free Cloud Guild spell and as well as a Ray of Sickness spell. Now our Skirmisher is basically ready for combat. On turn 1, if ever we can, we will be prepping the battlefield with plant growth to reduce the move speed of our enemies every time they move around in this plant area. So for our opener, we will be using our Cloud Kill to activate and prep the battlefield and to make a really nice kill zone for our Skirmisher. Now we just started a battle with our Skirmisher. We'll be using our offhand attack, which has acid damage. This will trigger the effect of our Cursed Gloves. The acid damage is from the Caustic Band that will provide us +2 acid damage. The reason for this is for us just to trigger our Noxious Fumes. As you see here, Noxious Fumes is now active, ending our turn. You notice the enemy just died due to the acid and poison damage. Now it's time for the Skirmisher to attack. We'll be leaving the Cloud Kill as is. That will prevent enemies from coming closer to our Skirmisher. And now we'll be dealing the farthest targets that we can on this turn. So we're just moving a little bit. And we'll be showcasing our Slashing Flourish for this turn to our enemies. Using this. And this one here. Enemy is dead. Also activated noxious fumes there on our opponents. What's really cool is that we can also set fiery surfaces on the plant growth that we casted earlier so that enemies will take fire damage if they move in this fire area. So now we also finish up these opponents here using our slashing flourish. Using our offhand weapon to finish out this opponent here if we can. Now he's dead, ending our turn. Now for this turn, we'll be trying to attack our enemies there with our slashing flourish. So we'll be using slashing flourish. I would like to use fear on these guys for this turn, but for this time I'll be using this slashing flourish. And now we'll be showcasing the power of fear to our enemies if we crit. Now we just crit. Yeah, as you see here, we just frightened these 3 opponents here. Plus, he also had the noxious fumes debuff on the enemies that will affect these 3 enemies. What's really cool about being frightened is that the enemies can't move. For as long as we will be critting, then most likely the enemies will just keep standing there and just wait for them to die. Just use my action surge just to deal more damage to our opponent using a normal attack, and I would love to use this on this boss. Attack again. And now we have another source of noxious fumes on top of a noxious fume. Now we'll be repositioning, ending our turn. As you see here, the enemy is just standing there, and we will be moving again and activate our plant growth so that we just prevent enemies from closing in on us and attacking our skirmisher. Now we just use an offhand attack just for good measure for that noxious fumes on critical hit. As you see here, another opponent now has frightened once again, and we can end our turn happily because most likely that enemies won't do anything. If you notice, guys, the enemies are now just basically a target practice for our skirmisher, and we will just dispatch them without them able to do anything about it. We'll just attack this one. Again, attack this one. And maybe ending our turn and repositioning. For this turn, I would love to showcase the power of the Cloud Kill once again, because we can actually use Cloud Kill again and again to reposition it to which area that we prefer. So I prefer just to move it a little bit forward. So now the Cloud Kill has a really nice AoE there that we can use. And moving into target, attacking this normally just to proc Noxious Fumes if ever, or Frighten or crit. Let's see. Now we have a crit. Most likely that enemy there won't do anything. Just be a target dummy for us to attack. So we're just gonna be attacking our target dummies once again with our range attacks. Attack here. Almost dead. And just finishing this enemy off. Now she's dead. Ending our turn. This build is so unfair. Sometimes I feel bad for opponents, but I don't actually, so moving along. I'll just attack this opponent here. Now we have Noxious Fumes active and another set of damage once again. Alright guys, thank you for watching the build. What do you guys think about this really unfair skirmisher? It is really fun to play around and playing with your friends. It also makes a really nasty kill zone. If ever you want a ranged striker that can dispatch your enemies like they're nothing, making them a literal training dummy that just stands around, this is the build for you. But yeah, would love to know about your thoughts as well as your comments and clarifications in a comment down below. Don't forget to hit that like button if you guys like the video. It really lets me know that you guys are enjoying the series. Shoutouts for all the people who have subscribed and keep supporting the channel. I really appreciate you guys for all of the amazing support. And for all the people who haven't subscribed yet, thank you guys for watching, and I hope I earn your subscriptions in the future. But if I earn it today, please don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot. If you want to support me directly, please consider joining our D20 Rollers Club by clicking the join button. Join our Discord with the guys, or maybe Patreon. Finally, that's it for me. Hope to see you soon on the next Master Box Show. Peace out. Bye guys.